You're listening to This Woman Can. I'm your host, Janice Sutherland, where I help mature professional Black women take charge of their careers and lives to create a future on their terms. Hey, and welcome back to This Woman Can. I am your host, Janice Sutherland, career strategist for the mature Black woman. And as always, I am thrilled to be here with you today. But before we kick into this week's episode, I just want to review some of the things we've covered in this very short mini-series, Permission to Reinvent. So I wanted to recap the episodes we have gone through so far and recap our journey. So we have definitely been on a journey, and the first week we talked about was all about giving yourself permission to make that career change. We explored my own personal story of career change and obviously spoke to Dr. Kimani Norrington about the Job Liberation Summit that was coming up, that just finished actually quite recently. And I gave you 3 questions that would help anyone feeling stuck to help them lay the foundation for what was to come. Then in week 2, we focused on reframing the fear and how you can overcome some of those internal roadblocks that often stop us from being our best selves. And the goal here was to shift from maybe one day to why not now. And you definitely need to have a listen to that. Week 3 was all about flipping the script from fear to fabulous and helping you see that your midlife, that the experience you've accumulated to date is such a powerful asset and it's not baggage. So you focused on recognizing and celebrating those unique strengths that you have that will help you with your next chapter. Week 4 was repositioning yourself for what's next. So we talked about not settling, and start to strategize and active pursuing what you truly want, what you want next from your chapter. Not just the one you've outgrown, but worked on turning clarity and confidence into actionable career direction. And last week was all about, or week 5 was all about creating the plan, a reinvention plan that actually works for you. And that it isn't about winging it. You can't just go along and think, oh, I'm just going to, something will happen if I just trust the faith or whatever it is, or just trust the process. You also have to create a strategic plan rooted in your visions, your values, and clear goals. So it was all about taking that steps to reflect and reframing from the previous weeks and turning it into solid, actionable ways. So we have covered so much ground. And if you haven't listened already, you can head back over to your favorite platform to catch up on all those episodes. And as I said previously, in week 1, I talked all about the Job Liberation Summit and the conversation we had, and that I would be hosting a masterclass at the summit, Power to Pivot, Reinventing Your Career After 50 and Doing It Your Way. And we did that. And one of the most powerful pieces of feedback was from one of the participants, was that how refreshing and how motivating it was to hear the journeys of women who've already made successful pivots, midlife career transitions. So, and that's what I do on this show anyway. So, it was really great to hear that feedback. And this week I am showcasing the story of Denise Reese, powerhouse in tech and entrepreneurship, as she shares her journey of resilience, self-discovery, and building a brand with purpose and authenticity. So make sure you listen to the end, as Denise has a very special gift for all This Woman Can listeners. Enjoy and let me know what you think. Hey there, fabulous listener. Are you over 50 and feeling stuck, undervalued, or just plain ready for a change in your career? Well, I've got something just for you. Introducing 50 Forward, Fearless Future, powering your next career move. This group coaching program is designed specifically for Black women like you, dynamic, experienced, and ready to tackle the next chapter with confidence. Together, we'll break free from fear and self-doubt, build unshakable confidence in your skills and abilities, learn practical strategies to land that dream opportunity, and create a career path that's as fulfilling as it is exciting. Plus, you'll connect with a community of like-minded women who get what it is to be on your journey. So if you're ready to stop settling and start flourishing, head over to janicesutherland.com and sign up for 50 Forward Fearless Future today. And don't wait, your fearless future is calling, because you deserve a career and a life that's bold, brilliant, and authentically you. Hey everybody, and welcome back to This Woman Can. I am your host, Janice Sutherland, career strategist for the mature Black woman. And as you know, this is the podcast, the place that helps women over 50 redefine their second act with confidence, purpose, and a touch of, fabulousness. Today, I am thrilled to welcome an extraordinary woman to the show, Denise Reese. I love a name that rhymes. Denise is a powerhouse in the world of technology and business with over 25 years of experience leading sales, strategic alliances, and business development across the US and Europe. She is an expert in everything from digital transformation to cybersecurity. Basically, if it's about making businesses smarter and more secure, Denise knows it. But that's not all. In 2020, she turned her passion for luxury and community building into Grace the Collection, a home fragrance brand that reminds us all to extend grace to ourselves and each other. Denise is also a dynamic speaker, a dedicated mentor, and a leader in organizations that uplift women and girls, like the Girl Scouts of Greater Atlanta and Women in Technology. She's been recognized as a game changer in STEM education and is an alum of leadership and Atlanta. So if you've ever wondered how to pivot successfully, build a brand with purpose, or lead with impact, this episode is for you. Denise, welcome to This Woman Can.
Thank you so much for having me, Janice. I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait for our conversation.
Fantastic. And I'm happy to have you here. So let me just go straight into it. I give a little potted history about, who you are, what you do. And yeah, you sound fabulous and you're all fabulous. But can you give our listeners just an update of, how you got to where you are in the latter part of your career?
Yeah, I feel like in a way I'm still getting to where I want to be, Janice. It's a never-ending experience, but I have been very fortunate to have some amazing men and women throughout my career that have seen things in me that I didn't see in myself and gave me opportunities. So I feel a real obligation to always pay it forward to others, because I am here because of other people seeing greatness in me.
Yeah.
And I started my career many years ago, but most recently there've been a couple of pivots. So I was recruited to a very large global consulting company who shall remain nameless. They threw a ton of money at me back in 2021, 2021, when companies were hiring and bringing on people and making all of these diversity, equity, and inclusion statutes and claims, and only 2 years later to be laid off. Completely unexpected. So I was laid off in 2023, and that was a very difficult and somewhat dark time for me, Janice, if I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Because you spend all of this time working and establishing yourself in your career. You're doing what you think are all the things, and it's still not enough. So you start to really internalize some of that, right? And you think, okay, well, what's wrong with me? Maybe I'm not as good at this as I think I am. And all of the things that you experience when you're going through a layoff like that. And so it took me a year to land another full-time role. So I was out of work from 2023 until almost the middle of 2024. Well, not quite the middle. It was like April, May timeframe. And during that time, I thought, okay, I've got Grace the Collection, which has been a labor of love for me. I started it during COVID. Right. As many women did during COVID, because we had all of this time. I wasn't traveling for work and just had time to spend on building and creating the business. And I thought, you know what, I'm probably never going to get this time back. So let
Yeah.
me spend this time while I'm looking for the next role, just going all in on growing and cultivating my business. That ended up being one of the top earning years that I've had to date. Did a number of pop-ups. I was in different cities. I leaned into community. I'm a part of Brain Trust Founders Studio, which is a consortium of Black founders in the
Yeah.
beauty and wellness space. They helped me to get some amazing opportunities to promote the brand. And then I was doing fractional work as well because I thought, I will be going back to work
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm not quite selling enough
Right.
candles, room and linen spritzes to
Yeah.
support me fully yet. But I was doing some fractional work because I also wanted to keep my edge because oftentimes
Hmm.
what happens when you're not in the day-to-day grind, you do kind of end up just, kind of coasting a little bit. And so I was able
Mm.
to use my skill set to help other small, medium-sized businesses to really shore up their sales processes, their sales organizations, helping them to close larger, bigger deals. So that was really good to help me to keep my focus, keep my edge, but also it still gave me some flexibility.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, Janice, it kept some money coming in to keep the lights on while I was waiting for the next thing. And then, April came around, or February, I think, was when I started talking to my current company, Capgemini, and that came through my network. So I think
Right.
for me, one of the top things that I would say to listeners is leverage your network. That is the way that most good things that have happened in my life, be it personally or professionally, have been because of my network. And you'd be surprised what people will lean in to help you to do when you just ask them.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we think that people, they know, well, surely you see all of these
Yeah.
posts on LinkedIn about me looking for a job and
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
social media, and we had coffee chats. But sometimes it can just kind of go over folks' head,
Yeah.
not in an intentional way. We're just all busy. So spending
Yeah.
time letting folks know how they can support and help you is
Mm.
advice that I would say we all need to do more of because
Yeah.
pride can kind of get in the way a little bit sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I would say, community, networking, staying the course, those are all things, and my faith, of course. I mean, I have to lead with that. There's not a part of my life that God does not touch for me. And that is what has kept me and what continues to catapult me. And
Yeah.
I'll be 53 in a few months, and I'm more excited about my 50s and 60s than I was probably about my 20s, 30s, and 40s. So.
Trust me. Trust me. I turned 60 last year.
Oh,
So, and
wow.
I
And
loved
you
my,
look amazing.
thank
Okay,
you. Thank
Janice.
you.
Yes,
Um,
skin.
I loved my 50s, but the 60s, like, there's just I feel unstoppable, and I don't know what it is. So
Yes.
you've got so much fun coming ahead.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
So Denise, you touched on something there about the ask about asking the pride.
Yes,
And I want to touch on that a little bit because so many of us, we have taught to be proud Black women. That's
that's
what we've
right.
been raised. We carry
Yes,
things on our shoulders. We need to,
yes,
we do all the things.
that's right.
But I always say to women, if you hear no, what's the worst that could happen? Because you'll know worse off than when you started, but actually you're in a better position because you're not fretting about what would happen
That's
if I
right. That's
if I
right.
don't ask.
That's
So
right.
what's the I know you've shared some great tips so far, but what's the one thing you'd say to any woman saying, look, I want to ask, but I don't know how to ask, or I'm feeling a bit reticent to ask? How do they get over that fear?
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to do it afraid, Janice. I mean, that's just real. You have to
Yeah.
do it afraid and also be willing to accept whatever the answer is. Because
Yes.
the answer, it could be no.
Hmm.
It could be, I can't do what you're asking me to do, but here's what I can do.
Yeah.
Or it can be a resounding yes. And
Yeah.
Well, and 9 times out of 10, it's a resounding yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think often, again, people are just waiting for us to let them know how they can help, because I
Yes.
think oftentimes people they don't want to pry,
Yeah.
they don't want to make you feel worse than maybe you
Yeah.
already do, whatever the case may be. So
Yeah.
I would say just do it. As the
Yeah. Yeah.
Nike,
Just JDI,
as the
Nike,
Nike
JDI.
tagline tells us, yes, just do it. And it was really interesting once I started to do that, Janice. I was so overwhelmed with the way people started to help me. And once I started to have those conversations and to also be vulnerable on my LinkedIn, there were
Yeah.
things that I posted that I was like, I don't know if I should have. But then I got people reaching out to say, oh my God, Denise, I had no idea that you were still searching, or I
Yeah.
heard about the layoffs and I wasn't sure that I didn't realize that you were also included in that.
Yeah.
And then it was like the floodgates open, and
Mm.
there were inquiries from people that I didn't even know, who said, so and so told me to reach out to you, or,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
people. I think people genuinely do want to help, and we just
Yeah.
have to listen to that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. And you touched on you touched on a lot of topics already, and we're very early in the conversation. But you touched on a topic about career change, and judging from doing my very mental maths, you were in your 50s at that point when you
Yes.
had to pivot careers. And one of
Mhm.
the things I think women of our age find very unnerving is having to make that pivot, having to
Yeah.
make that switch. But
Mhm.
I'm a big preacher that it's more than doable. It's more than doable. So,
Yes.
and you said yourself you'd been in a dark place when that happened, when you got laid off. So, if you don't
Mhm.
mind, would you share what you found were the biggest challenges for you at that point in your career?
Yeah. So, I think the biggest challenge for me, and as I talk to other folks who have gone through this as well, Janice, I feel like this is pervasive. We put so much So we just put so much on a title, a
Yes.
company, um, the bag that we're carrying,
Yeah.
where we live, what we drive, how
Yeah.
much, what fabulous vacation and how many Four Seasons or Ritz Carltons we've been to around the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And we start to put far too much focus and value on things that don't really matter in the broader scheme of things. And I
Yeah.
know I found, for me, I realized that I kind of I started to believe my own hype a little bit.
Hmm.
I tend to be a what you see is what you get kind of person,
Yeah.
but there are times in our careers where we're just genuinely proud of ourselves
Yeah.
and the journey that we've had, and we know how hard it was that we had to work and what we had to do to get to where we are, that we start to put our value and our worth, it becomes tied to
Yeah.
the title, the
Yeah.
company,
Yeah.
home, the
Yeah.
fabulous lifestyle.
Yeah.
And when you do that, when that's gone, what's
Who are
left?
you? Yeah. Who are
Who
you?
are you outside
Who
of
are
that?
you? Yeah.
And so it really did cause me to take a step back to say, wait a minute,
Yeah.
like, this career, this job, even this business, as much as
Mm.
I love all of these things and I'm grateful and thankful for them, those are just things that I've done, but they are
Yeah.
not who I am. They are
Yeah.
not at the core of who Denise Michelle Reese is. And I had to get back to that and really nurture myself, and
Yeah.
also make sure that I was, taking a very hard look at the people that were around me too,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
realizing like who my core people are,
Yeah.
who are going to love on me and be there for me regardless of all the other stuff. So,
Yeah.
we got to do that inner work to make sure that
Yeah.
we're not spending too much time outside of ourselves, and
Yeah.
really nurturing and focusing on the things that truly do matter.
Yeah. I hear that, and I totally empathize, because when I left the corporate world, I was a corporate CEO here and a very major job, a very prominent visual. I was in the face,
Yes.
forefront, telecoms. It's people's fourth emergency service here. And when I said, look, I'm leaving, there was, but apart from the shock and horror, thinking, why are you leaving such a big job? Because, it makes you somebody.
Yes.
I also knew very quickly, I said, I know once I shut that door, it's probably Janice who, because I
Yeah.
no longer have a value for them.
Yes.
Because obviously the phone was always ringing, the door was always being knocked, because
Yes.
not because of who I was, but from what, if I'm being quite cynical, what you could get from me.
That's right. That's
you
right.
know so I was very clear that I know once I closed that door, that those opportunities that were open for me in that role weren't there, and I was cool with that.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's not having that initial shock. It's actually going into it being cognizant of that. But then I've been
That's
probably
right.
laid off a couple of times as well myself in past careers, so I had
Yes.
that to fall back on.
That's right.
So but yeah, but I don't want to just, if only listen to this thinking, oh my God, it's all doom and gloom. Oh, if I change it,
No.
there are positives. I
Yes.
think there are positives in making pivots in midlife.
Yes.
So what would you say, Denise, is, the joy or the opportunities of pivoting at this stage of our career?
Yeah, so I think, the one thing I'm realizing is I still got it, Janice. I still have a lot of life to live, a lot to offer, and all of these experiences that I've had over, these almost 53 years, really have
Yes.
they have and continue to inform everything I do. And I wouldn't change anything. It's been a journey. It is a journey that I'm super proud of. And but also, I've learned a lot about myself. I know that I'm much more tenacious and resilient than I thought I was. I'm a lot stronger, a lot more resourceful. Because here's one thing that I know about women, and Black women in particular.
Yeah.
As we say here in the States, Jan, is one thing's for certain and two things are for sure. We will figure it out. So
Yes.
we know how to make things happen. We know how to get things done, and we make things happen. And that's something that I'm super super proud of. And I'm so excited. I'm excited for the way that people have and continue to show up for me. Since starting Grace the Collection, I tell you, the way that folks continue to show up and purchase for me and then purchase again and get their companies to buy from me and gifting to, yeah, I mean, just the opportunities that have come through that. I'm just like, wow, these 50s they're not so bad. And we've got so much more to offer than what we realize.
Absolutely, absolutely. And let me just add on to that. Black women getting things done is a
Yes.
universal trait.
Absolutely, it is. Yes. No, I was saying that the comment, the statement that I made about one thing,
Yes.
certain two things for sure. But
Ah,
listen,
right.
having lived internationally, we were
Yeah.
talking before we started recording. I
Yes.
spent
Yeah.
several years living in the UK. Still have an amazing friend/family network in the
No.
UK. And my dad was military, and we traveled the world even as a child, and even into high school. So our DNA is strong, and it is
Absolutely.
it, it is a
Absolutely.
red thread through across the
Uh,
diaspora.
Absolutely. So Denise, let me just kind of tag on to that. How has your identity as a Black woman shaped your journey, especially in midlife?
It is my journey. I feel like I am a Black woman
Mm.
before anything else, and the reason I
Yeah.
say that is because you can't hide this.
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah. Yeah.
we show up fully being who we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And I'm also so grateful for my mom, Ruth Reese,
Mm.
my grandmothers, my aunts, my mom's friends who are like extended family, even my cousins. They all are. I have parts and pieces of them that have really informed me. And I wouldn't want to be anything else because we
Mm.
are the culture.
Yeah,
Nothing moves without us. Nothing
yeah,
happens without us.
yeah,
And every space that we're in, we own it. We bring
yeah,
it. We're gonna
yeah.
always, and no matter what we're going through, we're never gonna look like what we've been through
No,
ever. We're
no,
gonna always
absolutely.
step out. That lip is gonna be popping. The hair is gonna be laid. The outfit is going to be outfitting. We are going to show up and do what we have to do. And I'm sure that there's other folks that do that may say something similar, but
Yeah,
there's just something magical and
yeah,
amazing about being a Black woman, and it
yeah.
is such a huge part of my identity.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And what do you think has been we when we touched on this a little bit earlier, but what do you think has been the most surprising thing about stepping into your power after 50?
That's a great question. The most surprising thing, I think, Janice, is that I am more capable than what I even realized. And I spent a lot of time on the couch sulking, woe is me, for a year, eating way too much ice cream, watching way too much trash TV. And, there was a point where I was just like, maybe I need to just get out of the technology space. Maybe,
Mm,
I'm just not as good as I thought I was. But then, my girlfriends, they came by, they took me to brunch and reminded me of who I am. And, so I'm just grateful, Janice. I know I keep saying that, but I am so grateful. I'm grateful for the highs, absolutely. But I'm now that I've kind of come on the other side of it, I'm even grateful for the lows because all of those things are what really frame us and they equip us even in the dark moments. That's where you really find out what you're made of. And that's also when you find out who's truly for you. To your
yeah,
point earlier, who's not just trying to get something from you,
yeah, yeah,
to get proximity or access that you can provide them with, but
yeah,
who's really there for you. And those
yeah,
low moments, you find that out, but you also realize who are the people that are showing up for you that you never
yeah,
expected to show up for
yeah.
you.
Yeah, yeah, very true, very true, very true. So thank you for that. So slightly different question now, or no, or it is a different question, not slightly. But
Yes.
you seem very accomplished, come across as very accomplished, very driven, and focused on what you're doing. So how do you balance ambition with self-care and joy at this stage of life?
Listen, I have learned the importance of taking care of me and making sure that I am pouring from a full cup, not a cup that's empty or, there's just a little drip of something left. I'm really learning to, as Oprah told us many years ago, no is a complete sentence.
Absolutely.
It is a complete
Yeah,
sentence. That nothing needs to come after that.
yeah,
And I'm also being much more diligent about making sure that, especially working full time and being an entrepreneur, my
yeah,
weekends are sacred. And I don't do anything that I don't want to do on
yeah,
Sunday because that's the one day that I know that I can truly take for myself. Sometimes
yeah,
on Saturdays, I have pop ups and events or whatever. I might be traveling. But I make sure that Sunday is sacred and it's for me to prepare for the week ahead. But even, every on the daily, I wake up every morning with prayer, meditation, mindfulness, get some good movement in. We've especially as we get older,
yeah.
cardio does not work like it used to, Janice. So we got to lift some
Nope.
weights and we got to lift heavy and often. And so that is a huge part of my self-care routine. It's not just about going to the spa and getting
Yeah,
massages and
yeah,
facials, what have you. It's
yeah.
really about constantly doing the inner work that you need to show up as the best version of yourself. And I know
Mm,
I feel very different when I didn't take that time in the morning to set myself up for the rest of the day. And
yeah,
there's times that, you do get up and you're hitting the ground running, but at some point during the afternoon, I got to stop, meditate, make sure that I pray, make sure that I recenter and ground myself, and also get good rest, have a nighttime routine around 9:30, 10 o'clock. The lights get a little lower, the screens start to go off. I've got some good relaxing music in the background. I'm preparing for sleep, doing all my nighttime skin routine, all the things. So yeah, I'm really learning that if I'm not good, nothing around me is good. So I have to take care of myself.
So that's a nice reminder. So just adding on to that then, what myths about aging or midlife have you busted for yourself?
So I don't have to subscribe to what people think 50s should be.
Yes.
I'm a sneakerhead. I've always loved sneakers. In being in tech, we've been doing sneakers and dresses, sneakers and suits for a long time.
Forever. Yeah.
And, there's folks who say, oh, well, once you get a little older, you've got to start dressing your age. Do not subscribe to that. I wear what I want to wear. I'm living life on my own terms. And what I'm finding is that as you show up as your authentic self, people really need they're drawn to that. It becomes your superpower and your calling card. So, just do you. Like I think that's one of the surprising things is that I can still be the fun, I'm going to still be buttoned up and be professional of those things, but I can also show up still as my authentic self. And I feel like I'm better for that. And I think people respond to that as well.
Yeah. Fabulous. Fabulous. So you're juggling corporate career and entrepreneurship. Yes. So corporate is corporate. Well, most of us know the corporate sides, but tell us a bit about Grace the Collection.
Yes, Grace the Collection. Yes. So Grace was my word for 2020, and our words have power. And I didn't realize that, Grace would birth a business, but it did. And I remember during the summer of 2020, we're still on lockdown. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, those tragedies and many others that were happening. It was truly open season on Black folks in this country. It quite honestly still is. But at that time, it was front and center because we were all at home. We could see what was going on. Yeah. And I remember sitting at my breakfast bar, and the day before this happened, the National Guard was marching down the street, down 17th Street. I was living in an area in Atlanta called Atlantic Station, and right off of 17th Street, and the National Guard was marching because they were brought in to keep the peace, protests and things. And I was like, wow, this is surreal, completely surreal. And I remember sitting at the breakfast bar, and because I was thinking initially that grace was not as strong of a word that as what I had chosen in previous years. But I realized at that moment, we need grace for ourselves, but we also need to extend grace to each other.
Yeah.
Fast forward a few months, I go to a bespoke fragrance experience with a friend of mine, just as we were starting to get back outside. And I created this scent and named it Grace. And shortly after that, the person who did the experience, she also is in the industry, and she provided consulting services to people who wanted to start their own fragrance business.
Yeah.
And being, coming out of consulting, I'm like, yeah, we hire consultants to help us to do things. So I hired her. We did my business plan. We thought about, my go-to-market strategy, who my target market or our target customer was, what would be the distribution channel. I knew very early on that I was not going to be in the kitchen with a double boiler making candles, and not to knock people who do that, because there's some artisans and chandlers that make some amazing products. But I just knew that that wasn't the route that I was going to go, because I work full time and I don't have time to do that. So I found a supplier, got an amazing designer to do all of my branding. And then things kind of went awry because the consultant that I was working with, asked me if I wanted to use the scent that I created for the Grace candle. And Janice, she tells me, well, normally when I do deals like this, I do an equity play. And I was like, okay. Initially, I said, okay. But then after that conversation, I put my business hat on. I'm like, wait a minute. If you want equity, then all of this money that I've invested, notwithstanding what I've paid you for your services, you could have rented all of that. So thankfully, I have an amazing business attorney who said, no, absolutely not. But we're going to put together an agreement that we think is equitable. She could have gotten 20% of the gross profit of everything that we worked on together. She said absolutely no to that. And as a result, the supplier that I was going to work with, Janice, she barred that person from working with me. Wow. And this was probably within a month of when I was getting ready to launch. Wow. So talking about pivoting, I had to take all of 2021 to find a new supplier, to rethink some things. And it didn't end up launching until January 2023. But my current supplier, shout out to Jamil Nolan. She's my manufacturer at Harbor Mill Candles, another Black woman-owned small business. And we are rocking and rolling, and it has been amazing. Just celebrated 3 years in multiple retailers around Atlanta. I was on Macy's.com, but that has wound down, have some other things that are in the works. And super, super excited for what Grace the Collection is.
Fantastic. And you have a gift for the listeners.
I do. So for listeners that are tuning in, you can go to gracethecollection.com and enter in This Woman Can for 10% off of your first order with Grace the Collection. And be sure to follow me on social at Grace the Collection as well.
Fantastic. So I was going to ask how people can get in touch with you, but if that's it, then you've just done it.
Yes, absolutely. Grace the Collection on Instagram, Denise Reese on LinkedIn, and Grace the Collection on LinkedIn as well. And I'm at Denise M. Reese on TikTok. I do make an appearance on TikTok every now and then.
Fantastic. And I'll be sure to put the links in the show notes. So Denise, our time is up.
It's too fast. This was awesome though, Janice. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you so much for joining me today.
Take care.
Take care. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. It was so many powerful takeaways there listening to that. But the thing that really stood out for me was what Denise said about not being afraid to ask for help. It's something I'm sometimes guilty of, and my husband says it often that he's not a mind reader. And so I know anybody else in your network. And as she said, a lot of things, a lot of roles, jobs, careers, opportunities are unspoken, aren't out there in the general public. So it's about leveraging your network to help you get ahead and make that next pivot. And it's actually one of the things I pick up in the 50 Forward Fearless Future program about how to leverage your network. So if you haven't looked at the program yet and are considering it or looking at what next for your career and you're over 50, I'll tell you to check it out. Just head to my website, janicesutherland.com, or there'll be a link in the show notes to wherever you're listening to this episode. So that's it for this week. Don't forget to visit Denise's website where you can get the chance to avail of her free gift. And I look forward to speaking with you in the next episode. It'll be the final one of this mini-series, Permission to Reinvent. And let's make it a great one. And remember, if I can, you can, this woman can. Take care until next time. Thanks for listening. If you got something from this week's episode, please let me know. Better yet, share it with your friends, colleagues, and anyone you know who can benefit from this message. Don't forget to subscribe or write a review and connect with me at my website, janicesutherland.com, where you can also subscribe to the This Woman Can newsletter or connect with me on LinkedIn. Remember, you have the wisdom, resilience, authenticity, and power to create a life on your terms. And if I can, you can, this woman can. Take care until next time.